Yes, people, Ricky here from Behind the Bars TV. Hope everybody's fit and well. Just like to say a massive thank you to all my subscribers because it's going up lovely. In the last couple of weeks, it's went up nearly 3,000. I'm up to 13,000 subscribers, just around about, and the views are going up massively. Last couple of videos of getting some really good views on it. But for the people that aren't subscribed to my channel and you're watching it all the time, please hit that subscribe button. It's free. A lot of people think that when you hit the subscribe button, you get roped into some sort of contract and you've got to pay. But YouTube channels are actually free to subscribe to. So hit that button, please, if you're liking the content. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about Paul Ferris, also known as Wayman. And the reason I'm talking about Paul Ferris in this episode is because he's been quite notorious over the years. He's well known, and his last sentence he'd done was actually down in Franklin prison, and that was for gun running. He got caught with 3 Mark 10 submachine guns, and for that he received a 7-year sentence, which he served in Franklin. He got out on the 21st of January 2002, and I believe that was his last time in prison. I don't think he's been to prison since then. I've been reading up on him, different things, just to find out a few more facts before I actually done this video. But yes, I believe that was his last sentence, and he's actually turned his life around, become a businessman, a legitimate businessman, and he's an author, and he's went into, I think he's got his own business now, security business, I think it is. But I'll just tell you a little bit about him, what I've put down some facts, just so I don't get anything wrong. So his full name is actually Paul John Ferris, and he was born the 10th of November 1983. He's a Scottish author and organised crime figure, or he was an organised crime figure. But Ferris was an enforcer for Glasgow Godfather Arthur Thompson in the early 1980s, known for his ruthlessness and extreme violence. He rose to a prominent position in the city's criminal underworld. But I've seen a lot of documentaries on Ferris, and I've seen the film Wayman. I know films like over-exaggerate sometimes, but it is a good film and it does portray him well. But like I say, in his early life, he used extreme violence. He wasn't bothered about what he done or who he done it to, and that's how he got himself, obviously, a name in the prison system as well. Because obviously, when he was in prison, he was doing a lot of things, and he got a name for himself. But he served a prison sentence for weapons in 1984, and he believed he had been betrayed by the Thompsons. In 1991, Thompson's son, Arthur Jr., was shot dead. Ferris was charged with his murder and subsequently found not guilty after what was the longest criminal trial in Scottish history at the time. He was imprisoned again in 1998 up until 2002 for trading in firearms and possessing explosives. Ferris was also involved in a long-running feud with Tam McGraw. So obviously that sentence he done in Franklin, which is the one I've just spoke about, that's what he's done from 98 to 2002. So he served 4 years off that 7-year sentence. So in Ferris's early life, I'll just tell you a few facts about that. He was born in the Blackhill district of Glasgow to a Protestant father and Catholic mother, and was raised as a Catholic. Ferris was the youngest of 6 children, with one older brother, Billy, and 4 sisters: Carol, Kath, Jeanette, and Maureen. Ferris was bullied for several years by members of a local criminal family, the Welshes, which is thought to have resulted in him developing the skin disorder psoriasis. So I've heard of that before. When you get psoriasis, it's sometimes down to nervousness and different things like that. So obviously, if he's been getting bullied at a young age, that's probably what's caused it, like it's stated there. He has known Glasgow gangland figure Ian McAteer since childhood. Ferris began his life of crime as a teenager with a series of revenge knife attacks on the Welsh brothers, and was arrested aged 17 for assault and robbery and sent to Longrigend Remand Centre. He was bailed after several weeks and while awaiting trial, fled from the police after a car chase, as the car he was travelling in contained a shotgun and knives. After several weeks on the run, Ferris was captured by police and returned to Longrigan to await trial. At his trial for the assault and robbery charges, he was sentenced to 3 months in Glenlock Hill Detention Centre. After his release from Glenlock Hill, he returned to court to face charges relating to the car chase and was sentenced to a year in Glenlock Hill Young Offenders Institution. Several weeks after the end of his sentence, he was arrested while attempting to rob a jewellery shop and returned to Longrigan. Upon his release, he continued to take revenge on the Welsh brothers, which brought him to the attention of Glasgow underworld figure Arthur Thompson, known as the Godfather. So obviously, he's been targeted as a young'un by the Welsh brothers, and he hasn't forgotten it, and he's went on to get revenge attacks all the time. But it sometimes happens when you become a victim when you're younger, getting bullied, you then turn in to the perpetrator and go after the people that bullied you. Ferris became involved with the Thompsons' crime empire aged 19 when he became an enforcer, collecting debts on behalf of Thompson and carried out stabbings, slashings, blinding people and kneecappings. A year later, Ferris was arrested following an incident where shots were fired at Willie Gibson and 4 of his relatives while they were travelling home from a night at a pub, with Gibson's cousin John Hogg sustaining a bullet wound to his thigh. The 3 relatives failed to identify Ferris at an identity period, but Gibson picked him out as the main man who fired the shots. Ferris was charged with 4 counts of attempted murder and was remanded to Longrigan. At his trial several months later, he was acquitted on all 4 counts with a not proven verdict. Now aged 21, Ferris immediately returned to his work as an enforcer for Thompson and was soon arrested again and charged with possession of offensive weapons after a pickaxe handle with knives were found in his car. While awaiting trial, he was involved in a stabbing and fled to Thompson's holiday home in Rothesay on the Isle of Bute. Within a day of arriving there, he was arrested by armed police and charged with various offences, including attempted murder and possession of heroin with intent to supply, and was remanded to HMP Barlinnie. The Barlinnie is in Glasgow, which is a remand prison, a holding prison. And I've heard about the ruthlessness of that prison. I think a lot of people who's been in prison and who's been in real life of crime will have heard of Barlinnie. It's got a fearsome reputation for getting slashed inside of there. The attempted murder charge was dropped a week later, and Ferris was found not guilty of the drugs charges, but he received an 18-month sentence for possession of weapons. After being released from prison, Ferris stopped working for Thompson and started a company named Cottage Conservatories, specialising in double glazing and conservatories, but still remained active in the criminal underworld. On the 18th of August 1991, Thompson's son, Arthur Jr., nicknamed Fat Boy, died after being shot outside his home. Ferris was arrested following the killing and was charged with murder and remanded to HMP Barlinnie. On the day of Thompson Jr.'s funeral, the cortege passed a car containing the bodies of 2 friends of Ferris, Robert Glover and Joe Bananas Hanlon, who were also suspected of involvement in his death and had been killed by gunshots to the head. At his trial in 1992, Ferris was defended by Donald Finlay on the following charges: the murder of Arthur Thompson Jr. with help from Glover and Hanlon, the attempted murder of Arthur Thompson Sr. by repeatedly driving a car at him in May 1990, threatening to murder William Gillen and shooting him in the legs, conspiracy to assault John Jonna Mackenzie on the 26th of May 1991, illegal possession of a firearm, supplying heroin, cocaine and ecstasy, breach of the Bail Act. Over 300 witnesses were called to give evidence at a trial which lasted 54 days and cost £4 million. At the time, the longest and most expensive trial in Scottish legal history, and ended in Ferris being acquitted of all charges. So all them charges he was up for, he got acquitted on all charges. After the trial, Ferris returned to Glasgow and set up a car dealership named Jagger Autos, and also became a consultant for security firm Premier Security, which had a reported annual turnover of £6.2 million. He also maintained contacts in the underworld, including Paul Massey from Manchester, everyone's heard of Massey, and Rob Carruthers in the north of England. In 1993, his brother Billy escaped from a prison escort after being allowed temporary release to visit his sick father, and was one of the 6 most wanted men in Britain until being captured in Blackpool. Later that year, Ferris accused the police of having a vendetta against his family after Billy was refused permission to attend the funeral of their father. In August 1994, Ferris received a £250 fine from a court in Manchester after being charged with the possession of crack cocaine. So whatever he was doing with crack cocaine, I don't know whether he got caught with a small amount or a big amount. Don't know whether he was actually smoking it or selling it. He told the court, "I'm no gangster," and claimed he was the drug. Oh, actually, here it goes on to elaborate on what I've just mentioned there. He told the court, "I'm no gangster," and claimed he used the drug to alleviate his psoriasis. In 1995, Ferris appeared in a television interview with John McVicker in which he remarked, "If anyone was born into crime, it was me. Crime is in my blood," and also claimed he had always used a weapon of sorts. Ferris was arrested in London 1997 following a 2-year surveillance operation by MI5 and Special Branch. At his trial at his Old Bailey in July 1998, he was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment after being convicted of conspiracy to sell or transfer prohibited weapons, conspiracy to deal in firearms, and possession of explosives. Although the sentence was reduced to 7 years at the Court of Appeal in London in May 1999, while in prison, Ferris co-authored his biography, The Ferris Conspiracies with Reg McKay, which sold 20,000 copies while he was imprisoned. Ferris was released from Franklin Prison, County Durham in January 2002, pledging to give up his life of crime. Obviously, that's what I mentioned at the beginning. And released a second book with McKay, a novel titled Deadly Divisions, in April 2002. That May, he was sent back to prison for breaching the conditions of his parole after being involved in a knife fight with Tam McGraw and an alleged connection with a £900,000 shipment of cannabis, later proven to be fictionalized by the newspapers and police. Official reports say he was wounded in the knife fight, but witnesses say he was free of recent wounds. As to the cannabis shipment, the other accused had not been in contact with Ferris for many years. Ferris was released again in June 2002 and returned to Scotland. So what I mentioned at the beginning about being that his last prison sentence, it obviously states he was recalled back to prison. And one of the things he was recalled for was what the newspapers had actually made up, saying that he was involved in a £900,000 shipment of cannabis, which had been fucking made up by the papers. It just goes to show when you're on license, you've got to be careful because anything can get you recalled. Something like the papers making something up. Obviously, he's high profile and they would want him back in anyway because of all the things that he's been acquitted with in the past. Ferris started the company Frontline Security after being released from prison. In January 2004, Frontline Security were criticised when it was reported the company were guarding the Rose Park nursing home where 14 pensioners had died in a fire. Relatives of the victims demanded to know why a company linked to Ferris had been hired. 3 months later, it emerged that Frontline Security had won a contract to protect speed cameras on the M8 motorway, with a police source stating, "The fact this firm have been handed this speed camera contract is just plain ridiculous." Obviously, the coppers would be furious knowing that he's in charge of a speed camera, him and his company. Later the same year, it emerged that the company had been paid taxpayers' money to protect Dumbarton Sheriff Court, and court bosses said they would not use the firm again. They would be absolutely livid knowing that Ferris has come out of prison, made a success of himself, and he's went on to security business, and he's making security for courts and speed cameras. Ferris caused more controversy when it emerged he was being filmed for a fly-on-the-wall television show to be broadcast on Channel 5. TV bosses were accused of glamorising his life of crime, with a Glasgow detective stating, "Now we have Ferris, the TV star, who makes you sick. He can try to become a Z-list celebrity all he wants." but he is a career criminal, and no matter how many times he tries to reinvent himself, we will always know the truth. In April 2005, police in Edinburgh began investigating Ferris over concerns he was attempting to invest in the taxi trade in the city. A film based on his life, The Wee Man, starring Martin Compston as Ferris and John Hannah as Tom McGraw, was released in 2013. Another book entitled Unfinished Business, which was written with Steve Wraith and Stu Wheatman, was released in October 2018. So as it's just stated there, obviously because he's come out, he's went legit, and he's making a success of his life, the police don't want to see that. They don't want to see him succeed. They don't want to see him. I mean, if he's been through the prison system, he's got all these stories, he's met all these people, he's wrote the book, why can't he profit from the book? I can't see any sense in that. Obviously, he's doing all the work. He's writing about his life story, just like anybody does when they do a biography. So why can't he profit from the proceeds of that? It just doesn't make sense, does it? But that's what they do when you've been to prison. You come out, you turn your life around, and they set you up to fail. They don't want to see you succeed. They don't want to see you become wealthy, become a businessman. But that's just the way of life. But yeah, I think I've just about covered everything on that one. I will do a part 2 when I look more into Ferris and talk about what happened whilst he was in the prison system and the people that he met along the way. This is just part 1. This is just a brief introduction into the Ferris conspiracies. But if you're liking the content, people, remember to like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. A month later, details of a planned film about Ferris's life emerged, starring Scottish actor Robert Carlyle and Oasis singer Liam Gallagher. Ferris released his third book, Vendetta, in October 2005 and followed that with an appearance at the Festival of Scottish Writing in Edinburgh in May 2006. This was followed by the release of his fourth book, Villains, in October 2006. In January 2007, Scottish Minister for Justice Cathy Jameson announced a planned initiative to prevent convicted criminals from profiting from the publication of their memoirs. Although Reg McKay has previously stated Ferris did not profit from the sale of the book and that his motive was non-financial.